Madam Speaker. I move that, in the opinion of this House, the Government of Ontario should, before June 6, 2019, provide a firm funding commitment and a clear timeline for the delivery of frequent, two-way, all-day electrified GO rail service along the full length of the vital Kitchener-GO corridor.
Ms. Lindo has moved private member's notice of motion number 42. Pursuant to Standing Order 98, the member has 12 minutes for her presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I want to begin by making an assumption. I have to assume, because this has come before the House a number of times, that we are all in agreement of the benefits of supporting this motion and ensuring that there is frequent, all-day, two-way GO along this vital corridor. We know that this will promote job creation, it'll build our economy, it'll help fill jobs, not just in Kitchener-Waterloo, but also in Toronto, where commuters are trying to get back and forth. The economic mobility that this will present, the innovation, the quality of life, I'm pretty sure, I would bet that everybody would agree that this motion and providing this such a necessary and vital mode of transportation will most definitely help everybody across the province. I spoke to, just recently, I held a roundtable on transportation, and I spoke to Sandy Pell from Vidyard, and she wrote to me and she said, and I quote, "By connecting our corridors, we open up access to further push the boundaries of what creativity means to us, and, in turn, push the boundaries towards increasing innovation within the region. Connected access will bring together a broader group of people from different backgrounds, meaning that we can encourage more creative conversations and grow innovation." Right. It's extremely important for us to understand the impact that providing this mode of transportation will have, and I couldn't agree with Sandy Pell anymore. I've also received, though, since tabling this motion, support from commuters, businesses, for instance, like Vidyard, but also advocacy groups. So I want to take a minute and say a very big thank you to Connect the Corridor. Connect the Corridor, founded earlier this year, is made up of the Toronto-Waterloo Innovation Corridor's top business leaders, innovators, and job creators. Its members include the City of Waterloo, the City of Kitchener, the City of Guelph, and their chambers of commerce, alongside leaders in education, technology, and financial services, and advanced manufacturing sectors. On April 2nd, they put out a press release in support of this motion, and I just want to take a moment to read from their press release. And I quote, "We hope the legislature will make this rare moment of unanimity," said Ian McLean, Chair of Connect the Corridor and President and CEO of the Greater KW Chamber of Commerce. "Congestion in Toronto is now ranked as the worst in North America, and nowhere is this more evident than the daily grinding commute along the Gardiner, 427, and the 401. We've settled too long for assurances and incremental increases. It's time for a real plan to deliver fast, frequent, two-way, all-day service with the timeline and budget to back it up. Connecting the Toronto-Waterloo Innovation Corridor, home to two of Canada's largest employment zones, is a job creator and an economic multiplier. We strongly urge members of all parties to support MPP Lindo's motion on April 4th and hope the government will deliver a plan." So I want to just say, again, thank you so much to Connect the Corridor. Not only for their support, but for the advocacy that they have consistently been doing. I met them in a variety of places in my riding, but also during the budget hearings. They came out to speak about this as well, and so I just, again, want to give them a big shout out. However, in order for us to move forward, I think that we have to be very honest about how we got to where we are now, how it is that on April 4th, 2019, I'm tabling a motion that has actually been tabled a number of times, a motion with the same idea, the same premise, the same goal. And so as we have this discussion, what I need us to focus our attention on is the lack of transparency that has been at play in both the Liberal and now the Conservative governments when this motion has been forwarded by various members in this House. I'm going to actually leave the history of what has happened to my colleague and to my friend, MPP from Waterloo. The member from Waterloo has participated in a number of ways in trying to get this going, and I really, really want to make sure that we put on record an acknowledgement of gratitude for her advocacy in this regard. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
But I'm going to skip ahead. I'm going to start my little story here in December 2017, because it was in December 2017 that the member from Waterloo tabled a motion about this exact same thing, and it was debated, and everybody supported it. It passed. So there we were, December 2017, and in fact, during the election, he wasn't the Premier at the time, but our Premier had actually said, and I quote, "We're going to fund that." And I also quote, "We're going to do it as quickly as possible." This was a promise that was made. It was a promise that was made with knowledge of how long people along this corridor and outside of it had been waiting for this. It was a promise that was made with a clear acknowledgement that past premiers had not followed through. That's the reason that people, I would safely say, people in my riding believed that and held on to that and voted for that change, because when it comes to what the Liberals had promised and not delivered on, they hoped, well, this was going to be different. However, two things happened. Two very important and troubling things. First, in December 2018, there was a sudden change of schedules announced, and chaos ensued. The schedule was changed without consulting commuters. Commuters arrived at the Kitchener GO station to find out that the express train was no longer, that there was an extra train, but it was coming at a different time. There were too many commuters there. It was packed both in Kitchener along the way and all the way to Union. They had to get security to come in to ensure that commuters were safe. And in the announcement celebrating this shift that was supposed to be from the Minister of Transportation, saying that we were taking a step in the right direction to fulfill this promise, it was just sort of thrown in that the freight bypass was no longer part of the plan. Yeah. There was no discussion, and to be honest, if I think back, when the Liberals had this plan and when this decision was made about the freight bypass, that was the only solution provided to commuters and to people in my riding that would solve the one problem standing in the way of getting two-way all-day GO. So when the Conservatives announced, no, we're not doing that, but didn't tell us what we were doing, it also ensured that chaos would ensue. So, because my friend, the member from Waterloo, and I are wonderful people trying to unite across all parties, we wrote 3 letters to the Minister of Transportation, January 9th, January 21st, and February 5th. We wrote to the Minister of Transportation and sincerely provided examples of the chaos that was ensuing. And in that, the final ask, we even asked for a meeting. Unfortunately, we didn't get a meeting, but we did get a reply. And we were told that the minister is committed to giving Ontarians a direct say in how we can improve the effectiveness and efficiency of provincial programs and services, but we didn't get a plan. No. And that's the reason why, as I turn to some of the commuters who have sent me messages of the impact of not having two-way all-day GO, this is why the trust has been broken, and the plan is what we're asking for, with a solid commitment, with funding attached, so we know we're going to get it this time. Mm-hmm. Sam Toman wrote an op-ed in the Toronto Star. He wrote, I realized battling cancer after being diagnosed with cancer and having to travel between Waterloo Region and Toronto for chemotherapy. I soon realized battling cancer often means battling traffic on Highway 401. The timing of chemotherapy matters. Over 18 months of despair and hope and frustration, we had no choice but to get to the hospital. You can be late for work if there's a blizzard. You can reschedule a missed flight. You cannot miss chemotherapy. Alexandra Piatowski, a student who was trying to commute, and I keep hearing a lot of stories of students that are trying to take advantage of the fact that you can be registered at a university or college and take a course at another university and college that may have a specialty course that you need. Well, they have to set aside 2 days in order to be able to do that. If they have a night course at, for instance, Ryerson, I've heard this twice, they have to leave the day before because there's only a morning train, and there's no train by the time they come back home. That's absolutely ridiculous. And on the day that I held my roundtable, I made a new friend. Her name was Jana Beaton, and she said to me, I am a Ryerson University student who's from Kitchener-Waterloo. I travel to and from Toronto often. She's had to change all of her travel arrangements. She says the trains we have offered are so limited, and it's impossible to commute back from Ryerson when I have an evening class.
Order, please.
As far as other modes of transportation, it can easily take 3 hours one way via GO Bus, and they only go to Square One, and it's extremely challenging to get from there to where I live in High Park or downtown to my classes at Ryerson. We have to do better. We have to do better. And in putting a plan together, we'll be able to address one other issue that's been brought to my attention from residents in my riding. There is an area called the Park Street Layover where the trains actually sit and rest and get turned on. They have complained about sound. They are aware, the residents are aware that there's safety issues concerned. They've complained about the sound, not because of the sound, but because they were promised that this was temporary. It has been temporary for 9 years. So, given that there is such a breach of trust with the residents in my riding and across the corridor, my hope is that everybody in this House will stand with me to support this motion and provide the lovely residents of Kitchener-Waterloo and the rest of Ontario with an actual plan by June 6th, on the very last day that we sit. We can all celebrate. Yeah. Thank you.